the comments box. As Edwin said, this is my second time of being online. And I wanted to start by saying I really enjoy networking. I know that might sound a bit daft to newbies, but I've probably been networking for the last 20 years. And I find it, well, I think it's actually been crucial to my career development. Those of you that don't know me, I started as a teacher, then I became a teacher trainer, and I went out and started talking at conferences. And then about 10 years ago, I made the switch and I moved into publishing. And I started off with a different publisher, and I joined Macmillan about 18 months ago. And I would say the contacts that I've made through networking have given me advice over the years, have given me suggestions of how to develop my career, and indeed have helped me develop a group of friends that are extremely supportive and enabled me to share ideas. So I've analysed what I've been doing and taken some tips which I'd very much like to share with you. So without further ado, let's just look at the opportunities of why we should network. I've mentioned mine, obviously, but it can really help you develop your contacts outside your normal teaching day. It's very easy to get either caught up in the school and the teachers that you know, or indeed if you're freelance, it enables you to get out and meet other people and like-minded individuals that may have the same ideas as you. So it's really helpful. It can help you build an outward-facing ELT profile. What do I mean by this? Well, an outward-facing profile enables you to share your skills and talents with the outside world. It's a great start if you're looking at going into teacher training, if you're looking at going to a conference, people want to know who you are. So the more that you can build up of the story that other people can access, it's better for you. It also helps if people are looking at your profile for work, they can see what you've done and what projects you've worked on, so they can see whether you're appropriate for them. Networking can also help you keep up with trends. It's very easy to remain isolated in your own country. If you network with other people, you can share ideas, and indeed you can share best practice. I think it's really helpful when you've got, you know, the time when you've got a really difficult student or a student you're not quite sure what to do with, you can put the question out to other colleagues around the world and say, what would you have done with this situation, or what would you do? Which I think is really useful. You can also develop business relationships. This is great if you are thinking of stretching your career and you want to, say, do reviewing for a publisher, or you're interested in getting into writing. Networking can be a vital tool for that kind of thing. And lastly, as I've mentioned, you've got career opportunities. If you're thinking of going into a slightly different arena, maybe you're working in a private language school and you're thinking of going into university, if you can develop the networks before making the leap, you've got opportunities to ask your questions. So you can prepare for an interview and everything else. So it's very, very useful. But some people don't find it that easy. Where can you network is sometimes a really daunting thing for people. I used to be very shy. My boss used to throw me into conferences and push me out there. So I understand what it's like. I would say networking opportunities will occur in conferences. There are events from ELT organisations like IATEFL, the small special interest groups from IATEFL, TESOL. They will be sharing the presentation at the end, by the way, Inya. So it will be on the Macmillan English website. So you can share organisations on publisher events. We did an event, for example, back in February in our local office in London, and we had lots of different teachers that came, and it was an ideal opportunity. So you can look out for the opportunities, and indeed, you're all using the chat box. It's a good way of sharing and saying hello to each other. The other place I would recommend for networking, if you find it a bit daunting, is to go online. The IATEFL website or Facebook group is fantastic. It's a great way to meet other people and share ideas or discuss issues. Someone very recently said they wanted to know how to start research, and they got a flood of information through. What you can then do is if someone's giving you an interesting comment, you can make friends with them online and indeed start an individual message box. So there's lots and lots of opportunities there. The other place I would recommend is the Macmillan English Facebook group, which again is a great way to start making friends and meeting people from even your own country and seeing ideas. And the link is just being popped up there for you. The other place I go is LinkedIn. How many of you are on LinkedIn? Oh, brilliant. And lots of you that are on LinkedIn. That's fantastic. I love it. I think it's the perfect place for building up your contacts. I started off a few years ago and I had nothing, and now I've over 500 contacts. And it really gives you an idea, opportunities of meeting people in the professional world. You can join up different groups. You're very welcome to connect with me, and I have groups down at the bottom of my page that if you're interested you can join those groups as well. And for example, there's an ELT Technologies group which has some really interesting discussions that I would recommend. So in other words, push yourself beyond what you know. Have a large diversive network, but ones that are relevant to you. You don't need to get every single person on board. You just need to choose the people that you think are going to help you, and indeed you might be able to help them. So how do you register on LinkedIn? I will show you in just 1 minute. You must see my next slide. Before you go to an event or networking, or before you go online, you need to prepare. I've got 4 simple steps for you. The first one is do your research. Before you set out, it's always good to have a purpose. Why are you networking? What do you want to get out of it? And who do you hope to meet? Using these tools, you can plan and you can make sure that you're actually signed up to an event where you'd really help. So my first tip is do your research and do it well. If there's a key person you particularly want to meet, like a publisher, for example, check them out online. That's where LinkedIn can come into really useful, because you can see the person online and get to know them a little bit before you meet them in person, which makes it a little less daunting. Okay. Now, I know this slide is blurry. It is deliberately so. My next step is get your business cards ready. Business cards are not a dying breed, and it's really useful to get. This is just a collection that I picked up at the last conference from my own networking. You'll see that there's a variety, and it's very easy to have these cards and just forget about them. So having an individual card that stands out, like mine, for example, I have a quote on the back, making the most of the that side of the card, and then on the front I have my contact details. I'll share my contact details later for you. But you're using both sides of the card, so you're making it more accessible. Here are some other examples of things to think about. You can make it funny if you are that kind of person, or have a little quirkiness. This was a company called Top Trumps, so they turned it into a game with a person's picture, and you'll see it's a childhood picture, but it helps it make it memorable. The other thing to do is have a different shaped card. This one, as you can see, stands out automatically from the rest because of the shape. Likewise, this one, bite-sized, is memorable because it's got a big bite taken out of it. The other ones I have, these ones are very interesting because they're actually thicker than a normal card. They've got a heavy-duty cardboard, and I like that because it stands out. If you've got a stack of cards, this one is one that really makes you remember who it is. And again, they've taken advantage of putting the company name on the front, and then on the back there's the contact details. It's also worth actually making it personal to the person that you're handing it out to. Phil, who I met at a conference after I was speaking, has been really taken the initiative, which I remembered him for days afterwards. I'd been doing a talk on how to use teaching in the digital world rather than just using print or just using digital. And he actually amended his card, as you can see at the bottom, from digital ELT editing to editing in a digital world, which was directly related to my talk. And I thought that was lovely. The other nice thing he's got is he's got this picture on the front. It's slightly digital, but again, it makes it stand out. So think about that. There's some really good places to make up cards. They don't have to cost a fortune. There is, for example, Vistaprint and Moo, which are online options for designing cards, and they're fairly inexpensive. So you can experiment and make sure that you've got the card relevant for the event. I know one of my friends actually changes his card specifically to who he's meeting. So he's got various messages that he has out. If he's looking at doing writing work, or if he's looking at doing editing work or teacher training, he amends his card, and it's just another idea of something to think about. Oh, is it a bit echoey? Let's see if I can turn it down slightly. Okay, is that a bit better for you in the sound? Okay, it's fine. Right, the next thing I would do is make sure you've got your LinkedIn profile up to date. Someone's kindly shared the LinkedIn profile, which is great. I think LinkedIn is fantastic. It gives a great way of sharing your CV with everyone, or as much detail as you want. And you can do it either online or on your phone, so it's really easy and accessible. Having it there is like really makes people remember you, and you can showcase it. You can add in recommendations. You can have testimonials of people saying what you're like, and you can. I think you can showcase your talents on LinkedIn, so it's definitely worth looking at. Before I forget, make sure you've got an up-to-date profile photo. I find it's really annoying in many ways. If you've got a flower or a picture of your dog or a picture of where you live, it's volume for you. I hope that's better. Adjust your photo, because if you're using it for networking purposes, it's really useful to see who the person is that you're meeting. So make sure it's up to date. Yes, that's a really good tip, Fern. Linking it to your website so that it's easy for people to see your profile. I sometimes share it on Facebook as well, when necessary, but I tend to keep my LinkedIn profile more for professional use, and my Facebook is a bit more for fun. Okay, the other thing I would do is have your pitch ready. It's called an elevator pitch because it's the idea, if you get stuck in an elevator, or indeed if you're put in an elevator for a couple of minutes, you take advantage of the situation. So have a short, concise version of who you are, what you want to do, what you are doing, and what your goals are, so that when you have a networking opportunity, you can really capture the moment. I have been caught before going between talks at a conference where someone has talked for half an hour, which is, whilst in itself very interesting, it's perhaps a little long. You want to have it short and snappy, so you're relevant to it. It's not all about the one person, it's making the contact between two people. So you want to give a sense of who you are, what you do, almost like a synopsis of your working life. And I would recommend to practice. You've got to make sure it's appropriate. As you can see from this cartoon, you can sometimes get it wrong. So think about what you want to say and how you want to say it. And also be aware of what happens when you're talking. What does it do to the other person? As you can see in this cartoon, he wants to climb out of the elevator. It's not appropriate for him. He's had enough. So try and read the visual clues and see what's going on. I found it very useful to just practice online in advance. Someone suggested earlier using a mirror so that you can see. I used to teach in Brazil, and when I came back from Brazil, my hands were everywhere. I was using them to describe things and to teach with my hands, and just doing a little recording of myself helped me sort of contain and be a bit more calm in my way of meeting. So it's worth doing a practice. So that's my tip on the elevator pitch. Practice, practice, practice. Practice with friends, practice with colleagues. Yes, some Brazilians are definitely like that. I was guilty. I taught with my hands, and yeah, I still do actually a little bit. But okay, so how long do you think the elevator pitch needs to be there ready for? I would say somewhere between 90 seconds and 2 minutes. You want to have it short, snappy, and concise. Right, next thing. So you've got everything ready. Another suggestion before the event is another really gentle way of networking if you're feeling a bit nervous, is to actually volunteer at the event. This is a picture from IATEFL where they encourage people to sign up and volunteer. You can help marshal, you can help do the registration. It's a really inobtrusive way of getting to network. You can say, hi, my name's Kirsten. Oh, you're here for the event. What do you do? And you can start the conversation very easily. So that's just something else I would suggest. If there's an opportunity to volunteer, it might be a good way of getting you in and starting to network. And don't worry about being a bit late. We will be sharing the slides at the end so you can see what you've missed. So networking on the day. Here are my top tips. The first one, if you're feeling a bit nervous or you haven't networked before, it's quite advantageous to arrive early. Sorry, excuse me. Arriving early gives you a chance to engage one-to-one with a few of the people at the session. It helps before all the hustle and bustle of the day, and it gives you an opportunity to break the ice. Indeed, the early bird catches the worm. It really helps, but just be mindful of who you're meeting. If you see the speaker is busy setting up, maybe it's not the best time to network. So try and capture the people that aren't rushing around, and it gives you an opportunity to talk to them. The second thing is, it's worth always thinking about introducing yourself to the organizer. Maybe you've met them beforehand because you might have, when you were registering, had contact with them, and then go and meet them when you're there and say, hi, this organizer can then help you by introducing you to other people, and that can be a really good way of breaking the ice. Another suggestion is to choose a magic number. How many people do you want to meet on the day? If you set yourself a goal to talk to a number of specific people, 7, 8 people, say, in a conference, or if you're just attending a talk, you're thinking of 2 people, give yourself a little reward when you've made that magic number. Keep it realistic. You don't want to talk to thousands and thousands of people. You want to keep it to a few people and make that contact more meaningful. You can set yourself a challenge with a colleague if 2 of you are going to an event. I like it if you sit on other sides of the room so that you can meet more people, and whoever gets to 10 first, for example, then when you get together you can compare who you've met and what kind of person they are and share the contacts. So you actually have met 20 people by the end of the day, and whoever gets there first could buy the first could buy dinner or whatever. You can make it into a little challenge. The next tip is be memorable. Keep it engaged. I think it's really useful to remember to have a good handshake. It's funny, I was talking with colleagues, and the thing that you might remember more is a weak handshake or a handshake that was a bit like limp. you want to remember to do a nice handshake straight to the person, remain with eye contact, so you can really make a warm greeting and it makes it memorable. The other thing is to keep engaged. If you are listening to someone, show you're listening, just as you would in the classroom. You want to be nodding at appropriate moments, smiling, etc., to keep that contact. So you want to encourage, absolutely, eye contact is crucial. Okay, and don't assume. This is one, you know, the time where you say something and you're like, oh, why did I say that? I didn't mean to. This is something, never assume. Assume only makes a fool of you and me. So think about it. Don't assume that someone is at first time at a conference. They may have been an expert, even if you are new at the conference. They could have been attending lots of times. So it's better to frame the question of, did you enjoy the last session? Have you been to many events like this before? Or something like that, rather than starting with the assumption that it's the first time at the conference. Yeah, I'm reading the slides. It's hard to remain eye contact the whole time. Sorry about that. Another question I would avoid is, how's work going? It's hard to assume that that person is in work. Maybe they're between jobs, maybe they're a freelancer looking for working opportunities, or maybe they're about to have a career change. You just don't know. So rather than asking how work's going, ask, what are they doing? What are they involved in? And in time, you can follow it up with how's work going. You don't have to do it on the stop. This one is the one that really gets me, is if you just think for a moment, how many students do you teach a term? Okay, we've got a vast variety of numbers there, from 6 to 150, 200, lots. Yeah, I really think this is a killer. You're quite right. I mean, if you just think for a moment, that's the number of students you've come into contact with. Then add in the number of teachers you've met, the number of people that you know in the street, the number of people you talk to in the bus stop, in the supermarket, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. And you may remember a face, but you may not remember the context you've met them in, etc., etc. You spend all your time thinking of that person. It's like, oh, where did I meet them? Was it in my teaching days? Was it in my teacher training days? It's a nightmare. So you need to just give them a clue. I met someone, I went to a conference literally a couple of weeks ago, and the person I met, I taught on a diploma course about 10 years ago. And if she'd said that to me, I would have been a bit of a loss, I have to be honest. But she said, do you remember me? I was on your diploma course back in 2006, and we were in a group with, and she rattled off a couple of other names. And she said, oh, and there was this time when, and she described an instance. It really helped me remember exactly who she was. And then we had a really enjoyable conversation. So help this person remember you, because the chances are they won't. And that's no personal offense to anybody. It's just, it's difficult if you are meeting thousands of people in your career. It's just hard to remember that particular person. Of course, once you've met them a few times and had lots of conversations with them, they become much, much easier to remember. The other thing is, be interesting and interesting. Not interesting, it's not all about you, it's showing your interest in others. Ask them questions. Ask meaningful questions like, why did you come to the event? What's your story? And also think in here of how, what can you offer that person? How could you help them? Are they looking for reporters, for example? Is there something that you would like to get into? Share the information. And at the same time, remember that that one person might have contacts with another 10, for example. So although they might not be the person to help you, they might know someone who can. So developing that rapport is really useful, and it helps make it easier for you to talk about your ideas after you've listened to theirs. So share, and involve them. Use your skills of teaching. Elicit from them the information you want. And above all, use your time wisely. If you've got this 90 seconds to 2 minute window of trying to meet someone, use it appropriately. I was guilty of this the other week, actually, at a conference where I started networking, and I was talking to someone because I would love to involve people in reporting for me. So if you're interested, when I share my email, please get in touch. I would love to know. We can network in this session as well. But in the session, I was talking to this gentleman who was, he was saying, I was saying, I'd like to go in and do school visits. And he really wasn't very keen. And he looked bored. And rather than continuing the conversation with him for too long, I said, well, okay, thanks very much then. It's not for you. It's okay. And it's been really nice meeting you. And I moved on. And I think that's the important thing. Don't waste your time. If it's not right for you, get out. So remember, be specific with what you want to say. Tell them what you want to do and how others can help you if they ask. And potentially tell them a bit about who you've worked with or who you'd like to work with so they have an idea. So yeah, use your time wisely, definitely. And then my last one is to take notes. If you think back to the slide earlier where I showed you a big pile of cards, if you think about the number of people you meet and the number of people that you're networking with, how many of you would remember all the details? I think the biggest lie I tell myself is, I don't need to write that down. I'll remember it. Well, you don't. Yes, take notes secretly. Absolutely. It's really hard when you've got a bundle of cards to remember. So I tend to put like little notes on the back of their card of saying where I met them, a little note about what we talked about, and potentially how we might work together or who they know. So I have a little memory to jog me down, and I think it's really useful because with the best will in the world, you just won't remember. Absolutely. I think a lot of you are in agreement with me. Okay. The last thing I would suggest is 4 little steps after the event, which is again taking it from the notes. So you've got the contacts, you've got your cards with the notes written on them. If possible, log them. Join up with them on LinkedIn, for example, or Facebook, so that you have them there. And it's easy if you're not a member, you can sign up for free. It's easy to get in there. And I would recommend scheduling about half an hour to just sit down and go through your contacts and make sure that you have recorded everyone and made the contact. Ideally, I would start with LinkedIn. Those of you that are on Twitter, it's worth considering and following people from an event if you've met them. It's not just Facebook or LinkedIn. Whatever is your preference is the way to work. And don't worry, not everyone will be on LinkedIn. It's not the end of the world. You have your email address on your business card. You can get in contact with them in other ways. These are just suggestions of what you can try. The experts of networking recommend that you need to take action within 48 hours of networking with someone. So drop them a little line and say, I found your talk interesting, or it was really great meeting you. And try and remember that snippet of something interesting that you heard. For example, Bill is really interested in self-publishing. Sarah connects vintage ELT books. Juan is looking for a catchy name of an iPhone app he's working on. You know, those kind of details, those are the bits that you want to follow up with. It doesn't have to be a long message. It's just a snippet to say, hey, remember me? I met you in the event and we talked about X. And I think it's really useful. The 48-hour rule doesn't apply if you're in a longer conference like IATEFL, 5 days. Often people are in the conference and they're running around doing talks, what have you. I would follow up the next week, but you get the idea. It's within a certain amount of time. It's worth doing that little follow-up. But don't do it too much. It's drop them a line and wait for the reply. You don't want to end up being accused of being a stalker. So tread lightly, follow up, and then see what happens. Be patient. Don't just connect on digital ways through Facebook. Think about how you connect in other ways. So you've got your friends or you've got your professional contacts. Keep an eye out. Maybe they're going to come to another event. Could you team up? Could you go to the same event together? You want to try and make it a bit more personal so you can really build solid relationships. And the other thing is you can connect on another level. Maybe they live in your town. Maybe you can go and meet them for coffee or discuss an issue about teaching together. It doesn't have to be just related to the conference or the event. So think of other ways of connecting too. And it really helps you build the relationship into something solid. And that's my suggestion on that one. Sorry, just checking. The last thing is to remember that networking isn't a competition. It's not about the last number. Whoever has the most number of the cards wins. It's nothing to do with that. It's making sure that your contacts are the most relevant and useful and meaningful for you. It's no point having a big stack of cards and doing nothing with them. It's about using the contacts and sharing ideas. So, as I said, for example, you could, by all means, network me. I'm on LinkedIn and Facebook, and I do recommend you can pop in and see me. We are only human, after all, as you say. And also, if you don't want to do it online, those of you that are going to IATEFL, I'll be speaking on Thursday, the 14th of April at 4:25 on Flourish Not Flounder, using teaching competencies to develop. So you're very welcome to come and meet me. There's also the Macmillan party, obviously, at the conference, which is a fantastic place to network. But otherwise, I look forward to seeing you online, and I invite meeting you. So thank you all very much. It's been a pleasure meeting you, and I'll hand back to Edwin, who will stand and help you with your certificates.
Thanks for that, Kirsten. That was really good. I really enjoyed that. Really good talk on networking. Are you going to do a quick Q&A, take a couple of questions from people in the chat box? Did you do that this morning?
I didn't do it this morning because people were asking as we went along, but if anyone has any questions, you're very welcome. I forgot to add this.
Just chucked you in there. So if anyone does have any questions for Kirsten, now's a good time to ask them. We can take a few questions if anyone's got anything on networking. This is probably a good time to make this certificate available. So I'm going to stick that there. Hopefully you can all see that. And you just click where it says webinar certificate and then click download. Once you download the file, print it off and fill in your name. So you get your own name, obviously. Sorry, Kirsten.
It's all right. Someone was asking whether you would need to change your appearance, or is appearance important? Well, I think if you're going to an event, you dress appropriately, just as you would in the classroom. You want to give the best impression that you can. I'm not talking about you don't have to wear a suit, you don't have to be as smart as possible, but it's good to have to be well turned out and show that you're professional at the end of the day. I think that's really useful. And the other question is, do I really practice networking? Absolutely. I do all of what I've subscribed to. I have over 500 people on LinkedIn, and I find it incredibly useful. As a team in Teacher Professional Development, we are looking for reporters, we're looking for reviewers. So networking is a very valuable tool. So those of you that are interested, please drop me a line. My email is on the last slide, and I would love to hear from you.
Well, thanks again for that, Kirsten. That was fantastic. Also, I saw some people asking about when the recording will be made available and where it will be available. So I'm just going to put the link in the chat box now. The recording from this morning is actually there already, and I will put the recording of this afternoon and the presentation up later today. So that's where you'll find it, just on the Macmillan English website. Okay, so thanks again for that, Kirsten. That was fantastic.
My pleasure. Thanks everyone for listening, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thanks everyone. See you later. Okay, everyone, so I'm just going to say goodbye now, and Henry's obviously away at the moment. I'm sure he'll be back for the next webinar. The certificate's still available if you want to download it, but I'm just going to stop the recording now.